Food and nutrition.
You know what I just fucked up, mate? I did not hit fucking record for the first time ever in 600 podcasts.
Welcome to the best hour of their day podcast with your hosts, Jason Fernandez.
And me, Jason Ackerman. With more than 20 years in the business,
As both coaches and affiliate owners,
our passion is to help create world-class affiliates
and coaches by building
better boxes. Welcome to
the best hour of your day.
All right, we're back after a huge scare, everybody, where I forgot to press record. Best hour of their day in real life, or IRL for short.
IRL.
Here with Jen Broxterman, all the way from Canada.
From Canada.
Sorry we couldn't give you better weather than you have in Canada, but the weather here in Virginia Beach sucks currently.
Agreed.
As it stands right now. But yeah, we're going to talk all about nutrition coaching, your backstory, which is really cool, owning an affiliate, all things nutrition, affiliate ownership, coaching,
Yeah.
if you will.
Let's dive in.
What would persuade somebody to take on the agony of being a nutrition coach and registered dietitian?
Well, those are two separate things. Dietitian, agony. Nutrition coaching, not so much agony. I think the appeal is there's a lot of low overhead and there's a huge high impact ROI. So not only financially for the coach,
Right.
but what you're actually going to be able to do to get that person results and change their life, change their health.
How did you get into it though? Right. So I know from a business standpoint why people want it, but like
Yeah.
you, Jen, you're like, you know what? I think I want to be a registered dietitian.
So that has an interesting life or death story to it. So on
Sounds provocative.
Yeah, so I was 16 years old. It was Thanksgiving morning, and we got that family phone call you never want to get. My dad had a heart attack playing hockey on the ice. So, Canadian,
Right.
but yeah, so he was a goalie, had a heart attack. He wasn't really overweight, but pretty high stress lifestyle.
Okay.
So my mom, I was old enough, my mom's like, you're gonna watch the younger two siblings. I'm going to the hospital. I'll give you a call. I'll
How
have
old
you
are they?
like, I'm 16, my sister's probably like 14, and my brother's 6 years younger, so he would have been
Okay.
10. So like pretty traumatic
young.
at that age.
Yeah.
And we got a phone call a little bit later. My mom's like, leave the dinner, doesn't matter, turn the oven off, get your siblings, you need to come say goodbye to your
Speaking
dad.
of the oven, before we go any further, I definitely forgot to turn the oven off.
Oh no.
Jen stayed at the house last night. I got up this morning. I was like, "What's that noise?" And then I was like, "I left the oven on."
Oh.
last night. So
Yeah.
But anyway,
Turn the oven off.
Yeah.
And I just had my driver's license, so we go to the hospital. My dad had a blockage in a point called the Widowmaker.
Yep.
And essentially he wasn't going to survive this. So we're in tears, we're saying goodbye to our father. He actually made it, like this does have a happy ending, but I just went into, the only thing I could think of at 16 was like, what's the smallest little thing I can do to help my dad get through this? So I started Googling healthy eating for surviving a heart attack. And we didn't have an unhealthy household. My mom was a great cook. We ate well. But again, my dad was busy, didn't eat breakfast, didn't eat lunch, worked all day long, had dinner, snacked a lot at night, high stress, cycle repeats. And so I just started to learn and nerd out on nutrition. And I always loved science. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I knew I wanted to help people. And I was like, oh, this is a really cool career. And I also was working at a sports nutrition clinic, and we had sports med docs, physiotherapists.
What were you doing there at the age of 16?
I was a receptionist, admin
Okay.
assistant. And I was just like really good at systems, which is something I bring into now my nutrition business. And I just started asking the dietitian kind of more questions. So I was like, oh, it's kind of cool that you work in this sports nutrition position. Tell me more about the role you do with your athletes. Like, this is really cool. We have some high performance people coming
Right.
in. What's your role to help get them to their peak performance? And so that kind of lit the fire of nerding out on nutrition and being like, I can make money and really help people and save lives.
That's it. I think it's interesting that that's the first thing you thought of. You're like, oh, food, like health.
Right.
I definitely would not have thought, if I'm in that scenario, was food a thing in your house? But like, how did you come to that conclusion? Because I'm, as a 16-year-old, I'm thinking like I'm probably not thinking like, oh, healthy lifestyle.
Right.
Rather they're like, oh, my dad is just having a heart attack because, I don't know, he probably didn't smoke or anything like that, but just
Right.
like, he's just, whatever, I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know, I don't think at 16 I would have thought about food.
I don't know why. That's just the first thing my brain did. Is it I problem solve where I go root cause. What is the root cause of this problem? I don't want to throw a superficial Band-Aid at the issue. I want to go really deep. I want to find that shard of glass in the infection and get the glass out of the foot. I don't want to just give you a T3. Right. So that was what my 16-year-old brain did. As I said, he's really stressed and he doesn't eat properly. Maybe I can help like cut up some vegetables and, you know, make the environment supportive. Maybe I can actually help pack his lunch. And I don't know why, that's what my brain did.
Was he, is he like, I mean, obviously he's playing hockey, so he's relatively physically active?
Let's call him fit with a little bit of extra body fat. So he was like
a former athlete who kind of has like a little bit of dad bod, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you guys eat like at your house?
My mom, like all whole foods, like made dinner every night. We barely did takeout, you know, barely ate out. It was stress and just for him, not enough vegetables and
anything like genetic or anything like that?
I'm sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
That's interesting. I find that very interesting that at 16 you have the wherewithal. I'll be like, oh, we have to have a little bit of a come to Jesus here on food.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're working at the sports nutrition place, and then, so how do you start to implement that idea? Obviously, we know that it goes, you go on to, you know, go to school, become a registered dietitian, which we'll get to, but what do you start doing then?
So I just tried to be as helpful as I could to my mom and dad to take down some of their stress. So my brain was like, this is food and a stress issue. So I was like, do you need me to go to the grocery store and get the groceries for the family? Like, I can do that. I have my driver's license. I'll go to the grocery store. I'll bring home great food. And then I just started like chopping vegetables or being like, Dad, do you want me to pack you a lunch? What would you like in it? Here are some great options. And then kind of like, you know, like a little kid, you're like, do you want your broccoli or green beans? But you're going to eat some green vegetables.
So at a very young age, you're already maybe even mistakenly like getting into like nutrition coaching and the psychology aspect of this.
Right, exactly.
That's really interesting. What I find so intriguing about that is like how early that is. Because when I think about food when we were growing up, I liked food. Like food is a big part of our family. Right. But it never crossed my mind that food, like, you know, you need it, right? Like, all right, you're an athlete, whatever, you need to eat food to support training, but it was never looked at as like, here's how you optimize. And if you did early on, because like, how old are you?
So I'm 38 now.
Okay, so you're a little bit younger than me, I'm like 42, but
yeah,
same era, right? And it's just like, when you need to do like supplements or shakes, like that was a big in the like late 90s, early 2000s, but it was never like, hey, you need to eat like higher quality foods. And we didn't eat poorly at my house. Like we ate pretty well, but we drank a lot of soda at our house. It was just like how I don't have type 2 diabetes as well. But I think it was honestly because I was so active. Right.
Well, I remember even using food prior to my dad's heart attack. So I'm like kind of a competitive person. Take out the kind of, I am a competitive person, but now it's
soft talk acknowledged.
Right, exactly. Mark England. But I always wanted to be the best and fittest athlete I could be. So I was the little track athlete, and I was like, what do I need to eat to go win my track and field race today? Okay. What do I need to be the top #1 cross-country athlete at our school? I just want to be like fit and strong. And I realized, this is like elementary school age, food was connected to how fit as an athlete I can be. And that's kind of why I was drawn to that sports nutrition clinic, was I just wanted to do everything around the athletic sphere of peak potential.
Did you do anything besides track?
Oh, I played all sports. I was like hockey, I was a competitive dancer. Soccer.
How big is
gymnastics.
Hockey for females in?
So when I started, I was like the outcast. So I grew up playing boys hockey.
You're like the tomboy.
Yeah.
That's how my life was.
Because like girls hockey wasn't a thing. You played like ringette if you played a nice sport as a girl. Okay. So I just jumped in with the boys, and we started with a very Canadian backyard rink. And it came down one night between...
Which is what, like water on the concrete? I don't know.
No, you like have a patch of grass and you set up boards and you lay down like plastic and then you like flood it and then it freezes because it's Canada and it's cold. Okay. And then you like shovel it and you have to like walk around and pack down the snow and like you build a full-on backyard rink.
Way too much work, which is why I played basketball.
Yeah. But we had this like epic neighborhood hockey game coming, and I was supposed to go to ballet, and I was like, but I don't want to go to ballet. I want to play hockey. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can make a pivot and switch. And my parents were like, cool, whatever makes you happy. We just love that you're active and you're enjoying like being physical as a kid.
I feel like there's a lot of great advancements about technology, but I feel like one of the things where and this is probably just me being nostalgic, I want like high school sporting little gangs. Yes. Or like our neighborhood sporting gangs.
That's
to
what we did.
Back, like as a big deal.
We just like would knock on the neighbor's kid's
like,
door.
You want to play stickball or like whatever? And you just don't see that anymore. And I'm like, really kind of sad. But anyway, okay, so you are super into this, and then How much do you continue to engage with this through high school?
So with
Find out what level, I guess.
Yeah. So like as a high school athlete, I did competitive soccer, competitive hockey were my main two sports. But I'll be honest, like with the listeners out there, and I think many people who are athletic can relate, got into some disordered eating. So really into it. My dad's health scare scared the crap out of me. And then as a stress response,
like the opposite
I
direction.
got pulled in
Yeah.
where I started getting like too controlling, too restrictive, too perfect. And it was just a way also because I couldn't process as a kid, like I could lose my dad at any moment. And that was so scary that pain, I could at least deal with the pain of under eating and overtraining. So I kind of went into this very disordered place.
What did that look like for you? So like I dated a girl in high school who was kind of like that too, and she was like a rabid calorie counter.
Oh yeah.
Was that
part of
what
it.
it looked like?
So I went from like a healthy, 130 to like 98 pounds, like actually anorexic, like quite.
Yeah, because you're 5'4".
I'm 5'6".
Oh, okay, sorry.
So like that's
taller than Jason Ackman.
so like very unhealthy.
Yeah.
But it was a pain I could sit in, like.
Okay.
And then everyone was like concerned about me. I'm like, no, we're just stressed at home. My dad just had this major heart attack. The day my dad actually got home from the hospital, my sister got run over by a car. She's also okay. But my mom gets this phone call. She goes, why does it go?
The majority of this podcast is going to be positive. Everybody.
Yeah, I swear.
Full of tragedy thus far.
And again, my mom's like, you stay home with your dad. I'm going to the hospital. The ambulance is on its way with your sister. She just got run over by a car that had no brakes and no insurance and was like driving around illegally. So it was like a hot, flaming dumpster fire of a year for our family.
Sounds like it.
And so my way of coping was to get really controlling because I wanted my dad to be there, but then I got too controlling for myself. So I was like calorie counting and I had like all these rules around how much I was allowed to eat and my worthiness with food. Like I had to exercise a certain amount to be, allowed to have a certain amount of food. Quite disordered.
Well, that's probably a natural reaction to trauma that is out of your control to
Right.
then go
What can I control?
What can I control? And then move into
Right.
kind of a hyper state of control behavior. But
Right.
the reason I think that is valuable is and we'll get there is like how you coach now and the things that you do.
And I needed that experience.
And well, that's
to
what I was
coach
going to go with. Is like
today.
all of that makes and like just so everybody knows, like we typically try to avoid most of these conversations so that we can have them here on the podcast. All of that now is starting to make sense to me about like why you
coach the way I do.
coach the way that you coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you major in college?
So I started with a life sci degree, so kind of this like pre-med. I wanted to make sure I hit all my bases to just be really competent in the science. And then I did a second undergrad degree in nutrition and dietetics. So I went to school not fully knowing I was going to be a dietitian. I just knew I needed to work in science, healthcare, and helping.
Okay.
So I picked a pre-med degree because I was like, this keeps options open. And then I thought in that degree, dietitian would be an option. And then as I got into actually the career counseling, they're like, ooh, you're at the wrong university because we don't have the accredited undergraduate degree. So in Canada, you have to have a very specific nutrition and dietetics. And there are only 3 schools in my province. And I didn't pick the right school for that.
I still don't understand the province thing in Canada, but
It's like a state.
it's a state.
Yeah,
Okay, got
just
it.
different name.
Very large
Yeah,
state.
president, prime minister, potato, potato.
Got it. Okay.
So I like really double dipped on my science credits. So that way, when I did my second undergrad, most of my first undergrad.
How far into your tenure there at school did this become made known to you?
Third year. So year 3 or
God.
4. I know.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Fatal
This would have been
error.
nice to know 3 years ago.
But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for a thing because I learned such a great, strong science foundation. And then I did a business minor, which was super helpful for what I'm doing today.
Right.
I was a dual varsity athlete. So I did both varsity hockey and varsity rowing and made
how did you pick up rowing?
I just wanted to learn a new skill. So I was all about just trying something new. Also had an alcoholic raging coach that would throw pucks at our head and was like really dysfunctional and just needed to get myself out of a toxic environment. Okay. So took a step back from hockey.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, I really want to still be an athlete. And I did a learn to row program. And then I was around like little minnow in a sea of sharks. And I was like, oh, these people are going to get me really good. So we had one of the national Canada like training centers for like the Olympic athletes. And you put yourself in greatness and you become great.
Yeah, that's just by osmosis.
Right.
Like you just do that's like I always call it like the mayhem effect. Like
Yeah.
people go to CrossFit Mayhem and like magically they're fit.
Right.
Just by hanging around. You're like, I guess
Exactly.
I'll do that too.
Yeah.
So you row.
Yeah, row hockey,
row
and then
hockey.
I transferred schools after I graduated with my life sci business degree. And then
So you finished.
I
And you're like, I'm gonna
finished,
have to go back again.
And then I just like hit the ground running, and I did a 4-year degree in 2 because I got a huge amount of credits transferred. I like loaded up. I think I was doing like 6 or 7 credits a year instead of like a 5-year. Like I just worked like a maniac essentially.
Okay.
And then got an internship, which is like quite competitive in Canada. So that's your year of training to become a dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
And then I applied for some scholarship money, and I got like headhunted to do a master's. So I did my master's in lifestyle nutrition. So people that have prediabetes, looking at a non-medication, holistic mindset, food skills, cooking, exercise, nutrition coaching. And I studied that in reversing prediabetes back into like normal blood glucose control. So that's all my schooling.
Is that what kind of clinical setting is that in?
So I worked in partnership with a hospital, but we actually did it as a community program to
That's
try
what
to
it's
get them
like. The
out
title
of the
sounds
hospital.
clinical, but then when you explain it,
Right.
sounds
Community.
like not clinical.
So we were trying to actually show you could take these clinical conditions and pull them out of the sick care system, and what nutrition coaching could look like in the community with a clinical condition.
So random question, because I know that probably sparked some interest. Diabetes specifically.
Right.
I'm not aware of any other kind of community or industry that has the number of type 2 reversals that you would see in the CrossFit space.
Oh my gosh, it's such.
I hope that's not the case, but like I'm not aware. Like
No.
there's hundreds
Right.
and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them.
Right.
Did you see that and when you were going through that internship, or were you
at
like
that
starting to
time,
figure that out?
CrossFit was still very, very early. So
what time frame is this?
This is kind of like circa 2009, 10.
Oh, it's still on the fringes. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I was
Still underground because we started in 2009, but it was
Right.
like starting to get traction.
Right. So I was dating my husband at the time, who was an affiliate owner. He's affiliated like real early, 2006.
That's really early.
Quite literally.
What number? Do you know what number affiliate he was?
I don't know. I know he did his L1 with Greg Glassman as his instructor.
That's really early.
Like really early.
He had to be like 2006.
I think he was
Definitely under 1,000.
Oh, I think he was under 200.
Oh, really?
Like maybe first 200 to 300. He was somewhere in there.
And what's the name of the affiliate?
CrossFit London. When you could still name a
when you
CrossFit
still name
after
a
a city.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. That's dope. And then we'll talk about you guys recently just sold, but it was a good sale.
Yeah.
So good for you guys. Okay, so you're doing that. You're in the clinical setting, and I cut you off there because we went on a little tangent. But do you start to see that?
Well, in our gym, we saw that. So once I kind of graduated from my master's, and then I was chatting with Britt, your dietitian, about this, and I just was like, I can't go into the hospital setting. That will crush my soul.
She said the same thing.
Yeah.
She did it for, I don't know, I was like maybe 18 months.
Like I cried.
Yeah,
during
she
my
was like, I
internship.
cannot
It was
do
the worst.
this. Yeah.
And I was like drawing logos for like my private practice, and I'd go home after a full day of internship being like, I need to create a better resource that is like upstream. How is this going to help someone before I see them for a limb amputation with their diabetes gone sour? And I just knew right away I wanted to be a part of the solution, not treating the problem. And so
you're CrossFitting while doing this clinical rotation. Okay.
Yeah.
So that has to be super frustrating because now you're starting to get like you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah.
You're kind of like a zealot now,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, you guys need to, eat meats, vegetables, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, and they're just like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
So that has to be a real challenge.
Well, one of the things I always believe in is I don't like complaining. So if I see a problem,
I knew I liked you.
I go into
That's what I don't like about Jason Ackerman.
is how do I be a part of the solution?
Right.
And so you can waste a lot of energy complaining, or I can put my energy and my positivity and my hard work into starting to be a part of the solution.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, I'm just going to open a private practice and really start to work with the people that have this mindset of, I want to take better care of myself, but there's a lot of confusing information. I'm overwhelmed. I'm burnt out. Why isn't it clicking? I'm going to help you. And I just always tell my clients, you have the knowledge. My job is to help you take that great knowledge and just support you in being more consistent and translate that into day-to-day action. And
Is that true though? That they have the knowledge?
often, sometimes they don't. There's a lot of confusing crap we have to sort out. But for most people, it's not hard to find good information about healthy eating.
Yeah, it just I agree with you, right? So it's like it wasn't a gotcha question, but like there's a little like very broadly speaking, everybody's like, I should eat healthy food.
Right.
And that's just like, and most
should,
people
and then it doesn't
should, and then they
translate.
don't. Right. Yeah. Okay. Now, so back to the, like, did you see anybody so you're dealing, is it primarily type 2 diabetes or just diabetes or one and two?
My master's was pre-diabetes, but then when I started my practice, I was focusing on like athletes and CrossFit, like
so
within our
you don't
box.
see anybody with that. Yeah.
Right. And then weight loss, just like healthy weight loss, and then some disordered eating and gut health, IBS, fermented foods, the gut microbiome. Like I got really nerdy into kind of gut health too.
Okay. So then, also competitive CrossFitter.
Yes.
Regionals, how many times?
4. Yeah.
4 times. 4 more times than Jason Ackerman. One
Poor
more
Jay's,
time. Well, he's not here. We got to pick
on
him. So what years?
So the only year I missed was when I was writing my thesis. So my years were, 2014 was the last one, and then I almost died. So I'll tell you that story.
We'll get to there.
2014,
Again, full of tragedy, everybody.
2013, 2012 was when I was finishing my thesis, and I missed regionals by 1 spot because I didn't retest 1 workout that I should have.
And correct me if I'm wrong. At this point, this is Canada East.
Canada East, yeah. So I
was
with
big region.
I was the Camille Michelle Letendre era.
Okay.
So 2014, 2013. 2012 wrote my thesis, missed by 1 spot, and then 2011, 2010.
Are you coaching in the affiliate this time too?
So I was working, I really wanted to stay in my zone of genius. So I was nutrition coaching in our affiliate, and then I was a foods and nutrition professor at our university. So I was teaching high-level sports nutrition, a class, multiple sections, and then I was teaching Nutrition 101 for anyone that was a non-science major. So I had the most elite scientific sports nutrition education, and then the people that were arts majors who were like, I need a science credit to graduate. What looks fun I can put on my roster.
So that high level, are these people pursuing a doctorate of some sort?
No, they were all the dietitian students.
Is there anything above registered dietitian? Credential wise?
No.
Okay, so there's you can't.
You just do a master's or a PhD in the field of nutritional science, but
right. So that would be okay.
But you're thinking medical doctor, registered dietitian, RD would be the title.
And then so how long did you teach there?
So I taught for 8 years until the tragedy,
right?
Which we'll get to. Yeah.
So then when you're teaching there, because a lot of that we talked about this briefly, but that sounds to me where you kind of started to figure out your shall we say, your method, maybe?
Yes, the systems.
Yeah, the systems for how you're going to teach this.
Right.
So, because and this is not uncommon now. I think this was maybe uncommon, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, maybe with it's the more behavior based than it is here's your macros and all that other kind of stuff.
And I started like that.
Well, I think everybody started like that. I don't know, but I think, just based on what I can remember, where a lot of the literature and the things that I was reading into at that point, and even a lot of things that kind of CrossFit was putting out at that point was very quantity, macro, which is all
zone,
super,
and then it was paleo, and then
and then I think everybody kind of gradually came to the conclusion is the information's out there. We clearly, it's not up for lack of information. Right. There's something else here.
That's what I mean is you can find the information, but it's the translation of that people need a coach.
Yeah, and
need help.
Which is interesting because if you go back in some of the archives, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe Gary Taubes had a little bit of a kind of a thought that was a little bit contrary to that. And his was a little bit not every calorie is the same and all that kind of stuff. And
he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. But he does talk about that a little bit in Good Calories, Bad Calories, I believe, where he's just it can't be that one person is has good discipline in the other one, but there is a little bit of that, obviously.
Yeah.
Which you should read that book, everybody. It is incredibly dry, though.
Yeah.
I read that book on a 36-hour flight to Dubai once.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I finished it on the trip there and on the trip back. But it's probably to date the longest book I ever read. But that book is really, really that was eye-opening for me. That was my first real attempt to try to learn something technical in the world of nutrition, generally speaking. It was wildly overwhelming. I probably only remembered maybe 5% of it or digested 5% of it.
Yeah.
But it did open a lot of different kind of doors, is different topics and things that I was just oh, okay, I kind of get this. But in that process, you made kind of the very similar transition that a lot of people make, which is like, oh, the behavior thing is actually the key to unlock all of this.
Right.
It's like we can get the macros like relatively close,
right,
or not even close in
right,
some scenarios.
Right.
But if we get the behavior right, like we'll start to make change on
Right.
that. So what's your curriculum look like when you're teaching?
So I start with, I call it the iceberg of success. So I'm going to try and paint a picture with my words.
Okay.
Kind of like the CrossFit pyramid.
Yep.
That was a source of inspiration of like, I can maybe visually teach this to clients. So the tip of the iceberg is the willpower piece. Do we need some discipline? Yeah, we do. But if you think you're going to like white knuckle your behavior change, you're not going to. And I kind of always joke with my clients that willpower is like our flaky friend. It RSVPs yes to the party. It has good intentions of showing up, but it's kind of hit or miss if it's actually going to show up. So willpower is at the very top. The level below that is the knowledge level. So that's where you do need a coach to go, let me correct some misconceptions. Let me just help tease through all the misinformation that's out there. And let's teach you those important fundamentals. But below the water is 3 more levels. So I have a habits level, I have an environment level, and then I have a mindset level.
Okay.
So I want to give a cool analogy to kind of explain those 3, how they work together.
Lay it on me.
Habits, as we all know, are the things that we do without thinking. So some really great examples would be wearing our seatbelt. You know, what do we do with little kids? Buckle up, buckle up, buckle up until it's a reflex.
Unless it's 1980 and that's not a thing.
Buckle up. Buckle up, buckle baby, before you drive. Buckle baby, to stay alive.
Right. And so what we're working on are, I call them health deposits into a piggy bank. So the more we keep making repetitive deposits of the same key things, the more habitual it's going to come. But habits, if we just try to coach with habits alone, some coaches are like, why won't my clients pick up the habits?
Right.
It's because they're missing the 2 invisible layers. So I'm going to skip the environment layer for a second and go down to mindset. Mindset was the piece I was realizing needed the most work. People had to change their belief in themselves, so their self-efficacy. They also had to get rid of negative self-talk, like, I deserve it. Like, oh, it's been a long day. I deserve this glass of wine. I deserve this chocolate. I deserve this takeout. No, you deserve to be fit and healthy. You deserve to get rewarded for all the hard work you've been putting into going to the gym, your sleep, your nutrition. So I actually play a game with clients, and it will sound funny. I call it the baby cry or the dog bark. So when your baby cries and you're a parent, you eventually start to go through a checklist of like, what does this baby need because it's crying?
Right.
Are they wet? Are they hungry? Do they need to be put down for a nap? Do they need a cuddle? If you just always gave the baby food, you'd be missing the mark.
Right.
So when I now have a client go, I deserve it, I go, actually, that's an unmet need. What do you deserve? What do you need right now? Do you deserve a break because you've been working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and you just need to shut your laptop? Do you deserve more rest and you need a weekend off or earlier bedtime? Are you bored and you deserve some excitement, or are you lonely?
You deserve something.
You deserve something.
Right.
What's the baby cry?
You're just using food as the because it's easy.
So that's like one of the mindset games I might play. Another one that I teach is the toothbrush analogy. And this is going to link the environment layer, habits, environment, mindset.
I think you told me this and you're like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you later. Because I don't think we've worked through this whole
That was the Easter egg I planted inside the Prosper course.
Yeah.
So here's a question. Did you brush your teeth last night?
Yes.
I did too. Now,
actually, no, because we were up to, and I literally forgot.
We were up too late. Okay, so perfect.
I lied, everybody. I'm sorry.
No, honesty is the best policy. So what are you going to do to handle not brushing your teeth from last night?
I will brush them in the morning.
Right. Do you call your dentist and need to squeeze in for an emergency teeth cleaning today?
I don't know who my dentist is.
Okay. That would be like a ridiculous response. Would you throw your toothbrush in the garbage and go, well, screw it. This is out the window. This weekend's a write-off. But
no,
Monday,
that would be silly.
Monday's the day I'm going to get back on track. So notice that your habit is so strong, it pulls you back. And in terms of the mindset, there's no inner bully making you feel bad about what happened. You're already actually over it. You're like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't brush my teeth.
Right.
But I brushed them this morning. No big deal. So when people struggle with healthy eating, they make mountains out of molehills, and they have this expectation of perfection, and then they blow up when they can't be perfect.
Yeah, it's like, well, I missed this meal, so I might as well stop doing this whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You wouldn't throw your toothbrush in the garbage. But here's one of the reasons why we're both...
Which is weird, too, by the way, because
so weird.
You typically only brush your teeth, well, most people, twice a day.
Right.
But
morning and night.
Right, but you would eat 3 times a day. Well, it's easier to get back on track typically if you were, because I have a higher frequency of doing this action than I would of brushing my teeth.
Right. Yeah. Food for thought.
Yeah, okay.
So then...
Pun intended.
Yeah. The other thing that people don't realize keeps them so on the habit of brushing their teeth is I want you to think about your bathroom environment. So weird question. If I was a toothbrush robber,
Mildly terrifying, but
not that I would be, and I wanted to rob you of your toothbrush, I'm going to wager a $10 million bet. I'm going to beeline to the master bath, and it's either going to be out on the counter or it's going to be in a medicine cabinet. Did I just win my $10 million? Where is your toothbrush and toothpaste
yes, but
located?
I feel like this is where else would it be?
Right, it's obvious. But imagine if Chappie
This is rigged.
hid your toothbrush on you, and one day it's in a kitchen silverware drawer. Another day it's in the glove box of your truck. Another day.
That is a real scenario, by the way.
Would you brush your teeth as consistently if it wasn't right there?
No, because eventually the frustration of trying to find it would cause me to give up. Maybe not actually. I would probably just go buy a new toothbrush, but I get the analogy. Yeah.
Right. So when we think about people and why they struggle with healthy eating, it's not necessarily a willpower problem. It's an environment problem. They don't have their fridge with vegetables cut up and healthy meals in their freezer, or grab and go and fruit ready to, access in a fruit bowl on the counter. So when we actually coach clients to better work on, I call it selective willpower. If I put a little bit of willpower into chopping my veggies as soon as I come home with groceries, and now that's front and center in my fridge, now I don't need as much willpower when I'm packing my lunch Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or making a salad or doing a stir fry, because that little bit of willpower is going to carry over.
You at least have a shot.
Right.
Because I could still be like, I don't really want to, and I fall back into an old habit.
Right.
But I at least have the opportunity for success, which is if I don't do that, then, like we were talking last night about the, we use a chef because my wife and I are super busy, and that's easy, right? It's just like, so I'm not eating like garbage. Or like, I'm like, I really just going to want to eat Chick-fil-A because I don't want to go to the grocery store and I don't want to cook dinner. So, and Chick-fil-A fries are amazing. But I would make that decision. I'm like, no, dinner's there. It's ready for me.
Right.
I'm like, it'll be ready in 20 minutes when I get home.
Exactly.
So I'm going to forego this craving to, I don't know, eat whatever, because the weightlifters like Sour Patch Kids. I'm like, I won't eat them. Right. Okay.
So that's the iceberg is, willpower, knowledge, habits, environment, mindset. And so we actually
I want to throw a wrinkle in this.
Go for it.
So that makes sense. But if we would go back 2 to 3 more steps, I still feel like you have the same problem. Meaning, that makes perfect sense. I go there, I chop up the food, I put it in the refrigerator. But now there's habits behind that, meaning like I have to make different decisions now at the grocery store.
Correct. And that's where we work with them on. So I'm going to kind of throw in a CrossFit analogy, because this is where I see nutrition coaching done wrong.
We like CrossFit analogies here, everybody.
Yes. This is where, unfortunately, nutrition coaches in the CrossFit sphere get overeager and they program nutrition wrong. So imagine we have a new person joining our gyms, and, we sit down with them. We realize they've been inactive maybe the last 3 to 4 years. They had a knee surgery 6 months ago, and they're getting their body back into shape. Would we give them Tia Claire Toomey's programming? Like, if you saw one of your coaches on your floor doing that.
Is that happening, or should we do that?
No. But imagine you walk in as an owner, and they're like, okay, you're going to go do Murph in a weight vest. You're going to do on the minute, 10 GHD sit-ups, and then we're going to throw you up and do some muscle up work.
Right, and then you're going to do a 30-minute EMOM of...
what are you doing? Right. Yet think in the nutrition realm, hey, I'm not going to really take some time to get to know you and assess you. No processed foods. You're going to eat perfectly. 3 sodas a day, only water. So what happens that I see is coaches bury their nutrition client because they forget that they might be on chapter 78 of their nutrition journey, and this client might be on chapter 1 or 2.
Oh God, this is something I continue to learn the hard way. In like multiple facets of coaching, just general. Like, so from like coaching an athlete to coaching a coach to coaching a business owner. Right. It's a continual reminding to myself of like, oh, they literally don't know. Right. And you're like, something that seems so mundane.
You can't explain chapter 32 if they're still in chapter 7.
Yeah, but it's almost like you're like, why? It's almost like the curse of like getting good at something. Like, because if you're, I believe in mastery, you recognize that. Right. But right before mastery, there's a ton of like assumptions on your part about like, oh, you should know that. And I'm like, why should they know that? Right. Did you tell them that? Right. I didn't tell them that. Right. So of course you shouldn't know that. Right. And I think that is something that we all forget. And because the other thing is challenging both, I think, in nutrition and in like just coaching on the floor is that the repetitions, the number of times you will have to cover something that is seemingly so simple becomes almost too challenging. You know what I mean? You're like, I have to cover this again. Like, what? Like I can see there's a lot of, I see it all the time. People are like, why should I have to tell them that?
Right.
I'm like, well, it's the 1,000th time you've said it.
Right.
It's the first time they've heard it.
Yes.
And I think you just have to like recenter yourself and be like, oh, okay, never mind. It's not you.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah.
I'm annoyed because I've said this 5,000 times today.
See, I don't get annoyed because I'm just like, I get to help someone.
Annoyed's probably not the right.
I'm so excited that I get to help someone.
Yeah, annoyed's probably not a great term for that.
Right.
Probably like because I know full candid. I have felt this where like it's exhaustion. We're just like again.
Yeah.
You know, but what I recognize is like, oh, that's a deficiency in my ability to teach a topic.
Right.
And I'm like, I need to bake that into the cake to either hedge that or mitigate that. And so constantly revisit. I was just having that conversation in there about the whiteboard briefs.
Oh, yeah.
And about like, hey, because we were playing around with programming and one of the other coaches was like, hey, I think we're writing too much up on the board. And I was looking at it and I said, I think you're right. There's way too much on the board. So then one of the other coaches, Blake, she was in there. And I was like, what do you think about that? Is that too much? Like, she's like, all the numbers? I'm like, yeah. It's like, she's like, why? She's like, full candidly, I wrote it for me. And I was like, okay.
Oh, okay.
Cool. And I was like, I'm glad you wrote it for you.
Right.
However, keep it for you.
Right.
Right. That's for you.
Right.
Because now what we're doing is like, we're going too far down the path. And I'm like, they only need this information.
Less, but better.
Yeah. Less, but better. Do that, but better. Right. Like, and so I think that's a constant learning process as you're trying to master something is that like it seems counterintuitive to oversimplify.
Right. My motto when I actually mentor inside like our nutrition cert is beginners complicate, experts simplify.
Right.
The mark of a really good expert is their ability to simplify it down. And that's why I'm so grateful I got assigned the foods and nutrition course for the non-foods and nutrition students because like, how simple can I possibly make this concept?
Right.
Because it needs to be so easy to understand.
Is that common in in academia to teach both ends of that spectrum?
No. And I'm grateful I was.
Why did you do it?
They were just two courses I got really passionate about. I love sports nutrition. I love nerding out. I love going deep into the research. But I also just love helping people take the complicated science and just apply it to their own lives. And that was the first year course was the most fun way to make nutrition applicable.
Okay.
And I have students be like, I tell my mom what you taught me and I'm helping her with her diabetes. And
That's cool.
her diabetes is getting better. It's impact. For me, I just want to have the greatest ripple effect using food. Like it started with my dad.
Right.
How do I use food to impact someone's life for the better?
Got it. So you finish school. You're doing your internship. At what point do you start your own practice?
Right away. So as soon as I finish internship.
As soon as you finish internship, I'm not doing this. I'm going to. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
I worked out of a spare bedroom in our house. So my husband's first CrossFit gym was about 850
Which
square feet.
I feel like is the norm now, by the way. Like everybody works out of their bedroom.
Right. But back then it wasn't.
Right.
And then we moved into our second CrossFit facility. So we were still renters. And then I had my first official office inside of our CrossFit facility. And that was awesome. Cool. It was so good to be like having a presence. People would pop their head in post-workout. I'd start chatting with them. They became clients. So it was a great way to get nutrition clients. And then what started to happen was we got such a great reputation inside of our box for nutrition coaching that other boxes were sending their athletes to me to coach them on nutrition. And then the larger community of my city started to hear about nutrition coaching inside of our CrossFit box. And then our CrossFit box just became a nutrition coaching destination.
Got it.
And that's kind of how things grew.
Okay. So,
and then we bought our building and my business moved into that and yada, yada, yada.
And so how long are you working out of what time frame? This is now 2014 or?
So I would have started my private practice 2011.
Okay.
And I was maybe in my spare bedroom office for about a year. And then I was like, okay, separation. I don't want people walking into my house, coming into my spare bedroom for appointments.
Yeah. Super weird.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're growing your business. Like how many clients are you working with in this kind of 2012 range, which is on the uptick of kind of CrossFits?
Yeah. So probably I was 50% a university professor and 50% kind of like a private practice dietitian. I sort of I did a half day at each. So if I taught in the morning, I would see private practice clients. I'd see 3 3 to 4 people in the afternoon, evening.
Okay.
Or if I taught an evening class, then I'd see 3 to 4 people in the morning and then go teach a 3-hour night class. So every day was like a split day.
Got
I
it.
loved it. I loved being an academic and I loved being on the ground.
A practitioner.
Yeah, exactly. Because I learned so much to bring to my classroom, and then I was staying current with the knowledge that I could bring to my clients.
And how many people are you working with at this time?
So
Ish.
I guess per week, because it would be like 3 to 4 people at a time, 5 days a week. It was about 15 clients a week was what I was roughly starting to see.
And then how many? Okay, so 15 clients a week. Is that 15 total clients, or you have them in
There's a little bit of overlap.
Right? So
yeah.
like call it 25 people.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around.
So and because this is always a challenge, and this is I personally have a little bit of. This is a contentious topic for me personally, not for any other reason than I think people. How would I describe this? This is going kind of counter to what we were just talking about. They oversimplify the concept of running a nutrition program or service inside of the affiliate. And I think it's done a lot of people a disservice. They're like, oh, if you just pop it up and people will come in there. And I'm like, nope. Pretty sure that's not how that works.
Right.
And so, because you have been very successful in this endeavor, what were some of the things that you were specific? And obviously, it is worth recognizing, like you are a professional in this realm at this point.
For
like
sure.
You have been through a very extensive period of academic schooling in this. You have like a piece of paper that says like this is what I do for a living.
But more of my training are the certifications post becoming a dietitian.
Okay.
Like lots of motivational interviewing, just anything. Okay, so where the success came from, I think I can attribute it to a few key areas.
Okay.
Never stop learning. I think for any professional coach that's out there, we would all agree the best and highest paid coaches continue to become better for their clients.
Stacking skills all the time.
Exactly. I was just so driven to figure out the problems my clients were struggling with and how do I become the best at helping them become better at solving their own problems. So just this like hunger to learn and get better. And that could be book learning, that can be certification. It doesn't have to be that piece of paper. Conversations with other like-minded professionals, just being a sponge. Number 2 is I was really focused on customer service and a raving fan base. So anything I could do to like wow them, surprise and delight, go that little bit above and beyond. It's easy to be average. It's not that much harder to be exceptional.
Have you read the book Blue Fishing?
I haven't.
You should. If you like the surprise and delight
I do.
Thing, it's a fantastic book. But it's essentially about like over creative ways to or outside of the box creative ways to over deliver, to really in the business that this guy runs. I can't remember his name. We'll have to drop in the show notes or something, but like he basically dials up. You ever seen the movie The Game with Michael Douglas?
No.
Where he basically they manufactured this like really like this essentially like have you seen The Game, right? What's the thing? Like they dial up like it's like a murder mystery essentially, or like an action something.
Oh, cool.
And they put him through it, but he doesn't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, this guy kind of does that, but like real life. So like he'll set up, they're like, I want to go to, I want to go to the opera and meet so-and-so. And he like facilitates these crazy things. Yeah. But the whole premise is like over deliver on something, like do like super minor little details and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is oddly enough what most people don't like to do. They're like, I'm gonna hang my hat on this, my technical expertise,
and hope it's enough.
Which
not.
Newsflash, it's not.
Yeah.
You at some point you're like, oh, I'm good enough. Like, and being any better at this thing actually has there's argument has diminishing return, which is like I have to now think about experience, right? Yes. What is the experiential process for this person?
So much work into that.
So
yeah, never stop learning. Surprise and delight, the client experience, the customer journey. And then I got really good at 2 other things. Motivational interviewing, which we can chat more about, and also social proof. Social
proof is the obvious one. Yeah.
Yes, but like really figured out Google reviews, word of mouth referrals. I've never paid for ads ever for my business. And I was getting like 4 a month, like overbooked. My wait time's 4 months, and then I kept raising my prices, still would have a wait list, would raise my prices, still had a wait list. So as soon as I learned how to motivationally interview correctly and not just be like, knowledge, I'm going to beat you over the head with like information, and instead turn it into a conversation where I gave them space to explore their challenges, their excitement, their goal, like really coaching correctly, my whole world blew up.
So summarize motivational coaching, because it sounds like you're doing it.
Right.
But that's not it.
That at all. So I like to think of 2 words to sort of sum up all of motivational interviewing. Powerful questions. You become excellent at asking questions that prompt them to explore the issues going on in their life, in their head. And then you're not jumping in to be the rescuer and be like, here's the solution. It's so obvious. You want them to figure out the solutions that might make sense. And it's a little bit, this is where it branches off. It's a little bit different from CrossFit because it's not so prescriptive. This is what's on the board. Pick this.
Right.
This is what you just need to do. You want them to support themselves in developing these skills to problem solve. And you're there as a guide and a mentor more than a like drill sergeant or boss bossing them in what to do.
Now that we're having this conversation, at this point, I'm now kind of realizing that we're kind of doing that in the new program that we just rolled out.
Right. Guide, mentor.
Unintentionally, like choose
and
your
having
own adventure.
Right.
Type. Okay.
Yeah.
So who are kind of the prominent? There's a handful of books on this.
There's that black covered one, Motivational Interviewing for Nutrition and Fitness.
Okay.
I read
Who
the
wrote
book.
that? Do you know?
Not
Doesn't
off
matter
the
if you
top of
don't
my
know.
head.
Okay.
No, it's like but black cover.
And then there's another one, isn't there? That doesn't have to do with nutrition.
Well, there's one called Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard by the Heath brothers, Dan and Chip Heath. And I remember starting, and then serendipitously at my university, we had a couple researchers studying motivational interviewing for healthcare providers, and so we just like bumped in the hallways, and then I went through their motivational interviewing cert, and that's when I burned the macro meal plan coaching to the ground. So I was doing, hey, I'm the dietitian, I'm going to help you, I'm going to tell you what to eat, I'm going to give you guidance, please go home and like try your best to follow what I'm teaching.
And then they don't do it, and now there's a negative feedback loop on there.
And they almost are embarrassed, so then they start to dodge their coach.
Right.
And it was like pulling teeth past 6 months to get them to continue. So as a curious scientist.
So your length of engagement is incredibly short.
It was at the time.
Yeah.
Before I
brought
in motivational interviewing.
So is that considered a technique?
It's just a coaching tool.
So what would be a simple, let's role play.
Okay.
Like how would that work? Like if I came in and like, hey, I really,
let me show the audience my 3 opening questions.
Ooh.
So as I used to do what I call the clipboard approach, which is like, do you drink alcohol? Do you like to cook? What is your schedule?
I already don't like this.
Bad job interview.
And would you like to buy a timeshare? Yeah.
Right. So instead, this is what I started to do is opening question. I do like a warm welcome. Hey, Fern, it's so great. We're finally getting to sit down. We've got about an hour for today's appointment. So I'm setting the expectation. What I'm hoping to do is get you talking right off the bat, just so I can get to know you a little bit better. And that's going to help me individualize this program to you.
Okay.
Does that sound cool? And then we'll jump into some coaching.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So question number 1, I really want to get to know kind of your backstory. Fill me in on your past. What's most important, especially around, your nutrition habits, your exercise patterns, big life events you've been through.
Got it.
Give me the roadmap of like what's really shaped you, just so I can get to know you a lot better.
All right,
and then I stopped talking.
Okay.
And then you would like.
So then I'd be like, I played athlete and I ate like shit. And
my dad had a heart attack.
Right.
Blah, blah,
but now
blah.
I just don't want to have dad bod. I want to work out 3 to 4 days a week, and I want to be like, moderately fit, typically the most fit 42-year-old in the room.
Right. So
That's
I
it.
am like.
But I'm not trying to measure my meals.
I am not coaching you at this point. I'm not jumping in, being like, oh my God, I got a handout for that. Let's get in.
Right.
Patience. Just a lot of acknowledgement. And then I just sort of thank you and be like, wow, like I've learned so much. Thanks for being really vulnerable and sharing all of that with me. So the next thing actually I want to jump into is let's fast forward, say 6 months to a year. And I just want to go to the audience. I'm going to plant a couple things. So I'm going to talk coach to coach here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plant the rough time frame of expectations around how long I'm going to be coaching you for.
Yep.
I'm not going to use the word goals.
This is kind of a sales tactic, which is fine. Okay.
I'm not going to use the word goals because goals are going to give us a super short answer. Weight loss, build muscle, have more energy. So watch what I'm going to say where I don't use the word goals. Okay, so Fern, we're going to now, let's say look ahead 6 months to a year. I actually like to call this Netflix season 2. So imagine we just skip ahead a season and we're in 2024.
Okay.
in February.
Okay.
Where would you love to see yourself? You know, what's going to make this a really successful experience for you? And what kind of support do you need from me to help you accomplish that?
Okay.
So yeah, where would you love to see yourself?
Yes, and I'd be like, lose a little bit, like a couple % body fat, like, a couple pounds heavier, lean mass training, and just like one more day a week.
Cool.
And sleeping a little bit better.
Awesome. Specifically for me, as your coach, what are some of the things I can really do to help make that a reality?
Figure out where I'm deficient currently and what would be the lowest hanging fruit for me to adjust.
Okay, amazing.
On the outset.
Yeah. So that's question number 2. And like you'll get context again.
Right.
And then question number 3 is my catch-all question. Is there anything else we missed? So anything around your past or anything kind of coming up in the future, like you have a really busy season coming up and you're going to be traveling a lot for work. That's probably something as your coach I should be aware of.
Right.
You have a kitchen reno, no countertops for 4 weeks.
Right.
Is there anything else maybe we miss covering? And so with those 3 questions, past, future, anything else, I'm going to learn about all the
That's
big
how
things.
You label them: past, future, anything else. Got it.
And so it's a nice, short, quick list for the coach to remember. But I will have people open up, and I've had people tell me, like, I've had an affair and I got pregnant and then I just miscarried. Like,
the craziest thing about
kid
consults,
you
man.
not. I kid
People
you not.
tell you the craziest shit when you
Yeah.
come in. They're like, I'm like wildly depressed. And I've had people tell me in consults, they're like, I recently tried to commit suicide.
Right.
Or I recently,
If you are asking
attempted suicide,
powerful questions and you're being non-judgmental and you're listening, people will get really real
It's
with you.
crazy.
It is. It's amazing because there is such vulnerability and trust. And those are the root. Remember, I'm a person who goes to the root cause. That is the shard of glass that you have to go find, that the wound is infected. And we can't just give them a Tylenol 3 to feel better. We have to figure out, why is this food symptom of stress eating or restriction or chaotic food, that is connected to something else. So if you can get them talking about the something else, you will be a much more effective nutrition coach.
Well, it makes sense when you say it, because now you're giving guidance with an immense amount of context.
Right.
Like, I like it. That's a lot of information.
And
so
that's why you become a superstar coach.
It tailors like tone,
Right.
frequency of contact, like all of that stuff now starts to no different than it does on the floor. If I have an athlete who is, grumpy, and just because they've been here and they're salty CrossFitter, I'm like,
Right.
I know that. Like,
Right.
now it took me a long time to get some of that information, but I now coach appropriately with this person because I know what
Right.
they react to, I know what they don't react to, I
Right.
know when to push, I know when to throttle back.
Right.
That's interesting. So, okay. So you get into motivational interviewing, that's your thing, you start your business, and then there's a little bit of a setback here, and I don't know this full story, which is what I'm asking.
Okay. So at 34, a week after my birthday, I got diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. And not just one kind of cancer. I had 2 ovarian cancers happening at the same time. Now, a little bit of backstory. I was like all through regionals, probably had cancer. I'm actually shocked I even made it to that level. I ate so well, I slept well, I took great care of my health, but I would get really sick. And it just didn't make sense. I'd catch a cold and it would take me 6 weeks to recover from a cold.
Would you just feel like worn out, or like?
No,
like
I would
bed?
be like sick in bed.
Oh, okay.
Fever, sniffles, cough, couldn't clear cough. I was so careful around the open because if I caught a lung infection, which I got frequent lung infections, I could miss the open season. I think that was one of the reasons too I missed that one regional year is I got a little too sick in that open season and couldn't recover.
Okay.
So I caught H1N1 and I thought I was going to die from it. My dog actually saved my life. I started turning blue and I couldn't breathe. And she went up.
When is this? Is this when they had the outbreak in like 16?
It was 2015. So it was the year of super regionals.
Okay.
The first year of super regionals. And I was actually fit enough to go to super regionals and I was so proud of myself. But I caught the flu. I was in bed. I thought I was dying. Turned blue, couldn't breathe. My dog woke up my husband. He brought me into Emerge, like limp in his arms. They kind of like brought me back. And then the doctor's like, something doesn't make sense here.
Right.
Like you have had a bunch of these infections. And they actually thought I had maybe undiagnosed cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
Because I was having like digestive problems
Right.
and breathing problems. They're like, maybe you're just full of mucus and you actually have a CF gene. So that started a whole bunch of testing. So I hate this word, but I'm going to blank on it. It's basically the word of like, we don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong with you, but we have no diagnosis.
Right.
So they sent me to all the specialists, negative for CF. doing different kinds of testing, negative for this, negative for that. I was sick, and then I had to do a breathing test, like a lung capacity. And they're like, well, your lung capacity is 210% of expected. I'm like, yeah, I'm an elite athlete, like a dual varsity athlete and CrossFit. And I'm like, I still feel like I can't breathe. Something's wrong. So finally, 5 years have gone by, and I'm, starting to believe I'm crazy and I'm a hypochondriac. And I really don't associate with being a hypochondriac.
Right.
Long story short, I had an abnormal PAP when I was 29.
Okay.
You go for like further testing when that happens, and no one read the report. So the report said negative for cervical cancer, potentially uterine or ovarian cancer cells detected. Further testing is needed.
And they just missed it?
No one read the report. So the specialist didn't read it. My family doctor didn't read it. So now, finally, I am so sick.
So 5 years goes from that report until the point where you're like...
I got diagnosed. And so my stomach was dumping everything I ate. I would be between nutrition consults, rocking on the couch, trying to swallow Tums, and I don't even like to take medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, I am dying. What is wrong? I got parasitic testing. And so finally I just went to my doctor and I was like, I am so ill. I don't know what's wrong. And they're like, fine, we'll get you in for a colonoscopy. Maybe you've got Crohn's. Maybe you just have ulcers up and down your GI tract and you're dumping everything out. And I was just a mess. And so they get in there and all of a sudden there's a big backlog behind me. And I don't know, I'm put out, and they get the camera up there and they're like, oh, there is something that's growing into your GI tract and infiltrated it, and it's cancer. So I wake up and then they pull you to the private room. Mm-hmm. And I work in healthcare enough to know you do not want to get pulled.
You don't want to go in the private room. You don't want to hear I'm going to go get Dr. So-and-so.
Exactly.
Immediate bad news.
Yeah. So I look the doctor in the eye and I go, is it cancer? And he's like, we can't say. And I was like, no, you can say. Be honest with me.
You fucking better.
Shoot me straight. And he's like, well, 50-50. And he says that because they're waiting for the pathology to come back. Found the report later, of course, it was cancer. So 3 weeks go by, longest 3 weeks ever. And I guess they were trying to figure out the cell type, and that's why they were confused, because there was 2 cancers happening at once. So it got escalated to another hospital, escalated to another tumor board. So they sent it to 3 pathology centers in Canada to be what is going on? Mm-hmm. And then how I got told is I got a phone call. I'll never forget it. It was October 29th, dark and stormy night. I kid you not. Blocked number rings. I'm like, I know this is the hospital. Pick up the phone and the doctor's like, hey, is this Jennifer? This is Dr. So-and-so. Yes. Do you have a second to talk? Yes. Your pathology report came back. You have cancer. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. Do you have any questions for me? I don't remember what I even said.
Right.
Okay, we'll get in touch with you. Click. That was how the news was delivered. Over the phone. I'm by myself. I actually have to go teach a nutrition night class. It is 5:58 p.m. My night class starts at 6:30. My husband's on the floor, super professional coach when he coaches. Phone is on silent in a drawer, does not look at his phone when he coaches. So I freak out and I try to call him knowing that he's not going to pick it up.
Yeah.
So then I call my mom and dad and I was like, I have cancer. And they're like, what? And I was like, pathology's back. I have cancer. And so they're like, okay.
Did they tell you it's stage 3 at this point?
No.
They're just like, you have cancer, but not, they don't give you any indication on the severity.
No, not at all. And they told me they thought it was colon cancer because that's where it got detected.
Right.
But it wasn't. It was very advanced. So my parents are like, we're getting in the car, we're driving. They live about an hour and a half away. And so being the prof that I am, because I have 90 first year students who have to hike up a hill to the university, building that I teach at, and I do these very fun gamification of participation marks. I was like, I am not going to have 90 students send me an email freaking out. So I was like, I'm going to hold it together. I'm going to go to class. We're going to quickly do the activity. I've actually already recorded this lecture because I have backups upon backups to be professional. So I was like, hey, there's a video of me. I'm going to upload it to the student drive. You can watch today's class. I didn't want to screw them over. They had a midterm the next week. I'm still thinking about
the students, yeah.
And then I was there for 15 minutes. They all got their participation mark. They got the class video. And I'm like, little white lie, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. I'm going to go back home. But meanwhile, as I'm driving to go to campus, I'm calling one of our members who's OG, best human ever. And I was like, I know he trains at 6 o'clock. Maybe I can reach him on his cell phone and he needs to go grab my husband.
Right.
And I couldn't reach him, but I reached his wife and I was like, can you drive to our gym and you need to tell my husband like this news. This poor woman had to go to our gym and tell my husband.
How far away is this? Like you couldn't go there?
I had to go to teach, or
Oh,
I
got
like
it.
drove
Okay.
myself to school.
Right,
I
right,
probably
okay.
shouldn't, like looking back, but like I was in shock.
Hindsight, I probably would have gone to tell my husband that I had cancer.
Right, like, but like you're in shock, and
Oh,
I just
yeah,
like
I get it. Yeah.
like held it together, and I was
Right.
like, okay, like this is like logically what will make the less, because whether he finds it now or in an hour, but I'm gonna have 90 students emailing me, and I'm gonna have headache to deal
Right,
with.
right.
So like order of operations, logically now, probably not the right order,
Yeah.
but like that made sense in my brain. So he comes home with like a bouquet of flowers. He like closes the gym. He's like, guys, like have to go home.
Right.
So then I have maybe a couple weeks and I'm going in for like surgery. And I don't know how bad it is. They're just like, it's something bigger. It's probably not colon cancer. So they had me come back 5 days later after the like, you have cancer, click. They don't reach out to me for 5 days. Like talk about dropping a bomb and just letting someone fall apart.
That's what we call bad bedside manner.
Horrible bedside manner. But I was like, okay, I'm going to lean into my skills. What are some of my skills? I'm incredibly organized. So in the day after my diagnosis, I went around and I captured every piece of medical documentation that had ever been done on me in those 5 years of testing. And I went to Staples and I bought a binder and bought those clear like page protectors. And I got every single report, every single piece of blood work. And that's where I found the report that showed I had cancer forming 5 years ago. And I was like, why didn't anyone
Right.
read this report? But I was like, I can't deal with that right now. It's in the past. I have to focus on the present.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also had a business to run.
Right.
So I was like, oh my God, everything I've ever worked for is going to burn to the ground. Or I cannot be fatalistic and go, what can I do in this moment? And so I just started to video record how I was using motivational interviewing and the games I was playing with my clients. And I had a super part-time employee at the time. And I was like, I don't know if I'm even going to survive this, but while I'm going off for surgery, I need you to like watch this like mini library I'm building for you. And I'm going to hand my whole caseload over to you and you're going to take over. And she was like, brand new grad. She's like, okay. And I was like, I'll mentor as best I can from
Right.
like a hospital bed, but really I need you to step into this role. Here's the best I can prepare you for the time that I have. So I start getting my business ready. And then I go in for surgery. Yeah, probably 2-3 weeks after that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wake up and my leg's paralyzed. So they open me up. I don't know how advanced it's going to be before surgery happens. Funny anecdote, when I'm filling out the anesthesiology paperwork, they ask weird questions like, how many flights of stairs can you climb like unbroken? I was like, well, I've done the CN Tower race in like downtown Toronto. So like, I don't know, like 130 flights unbroken, but we ran out of steps. I got to the top.
Right.
So I was like, okay, CrossFit Jen is like very prepared for this. And it's weird. I was like, it's almost like all the regionals, all the schooling, all the coaching prepared me for this moment to be ready to successfully handle this. So going to surgery, it's about a 5-hour surgery. An ovarian cancer that I have is called low-grade serous ovarian cancer.
Okay.
And it's like a tent caterpillar nest. It's like a spider's web that
sounds
doesn't
terrifying.
that doesn't form a nice hard tumor where you can cut the margins. It clings and sticks to all your surfaces like a spider web. And then I have high-grade serous ovarian cancer, and that one is like pancreatic cancer. It spreads really rapidly. It takes you down. Most people don't survive the year. So I wake up, and they're like, it was pretty bad. You have lost your uterus, your cervix, your ovaries, your appendix, your ileocecal valve, your sigmoid colon, a third of your bladder. We had to take out a whole bunch of omentum, some blood vessels. We took out as much fuzz as we could, so they kind of like defuzz you, and they're like scraping your organs. But the way most people unfortunately pass away is it comes back. It's because they can't get all the microscopic cells, so the
keeps going.
It keeps going, and then it clings to all your organs. So eventually you run out of organs to cut out,
Right.
and then it like infiltrates your GI tract because it was already inside my GI system. But the problem is I had, I guess, what's called a lean person injury. So you're kind of in like a stirrup position
Okay.
while they're operating, and my femoral nerve got pinched. So as I'm waking up and coming to, I'm like kind of checking my extremities, and I was like, my leg doesn't move. I can't wiggle my toes. My right leg is just a piece of jello, like that just is sitting there. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, I can't move my leg. Like nothing is happening. And so they were like, oh, like this can sometimes happen. And they tried to get an epidural in my back pre-surgery, but they like couldn't get it in me. So I was like, oh my gosh, like did I sign off my waiver? Like you can get paralyzed from this procedure. So my leg does not work. So I have an incision from here to here. My GI tract's been sewn together in a couple places and my leg doesn't work. And it feels like hot pins and needles, like the worst your leg is asleep, but it doesn't stop for 7 days straight. So I'm in the hospital bed. This is kind of embarrassing. I'm not allowed to have food until I can prove I can fart because you have to prove.
Clear.
You have to clear.
Yep.
I cannot fart for the life of me. I had to work an entire week and then my belly's getting more and more distended. And so they actually thought, they took me for 2 CT scans in one day because they're like, we think your guts are going to burst open. We're probably going to have to open you up and like fix what's happening from surgery. So I actually thought like my digestive system was going to erupt. So by Friday, my husband's in the room, like what a champ, and I get my fart out. It was the most foul, disgusting thing.
I'm sure.
But I was like, but I did it. I farted. This is so embarrassing. I'm surprised.
Well, you survived. I mean.
Yeah. And I'm like, all my hair's falling out. I'm like losing muscle mass. Like I was.
Were you going through chemo at this point?
No, this is the first step is surgery to figure out, like first you do the surgical removal.
What's causing the hair to fall out?
Oh, because I didn't get food for.
Oh, got it.
I wasn't allowed to eat as of like the Friday night. My surgery was a Monday morning. So I fasted all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And then they wouldn't give me food till I could pass.
So you've gone like a week.
More than a week. I think I'm at.
Are you just surviving on like IVs, meds?
All they gave me was like IV water. And then they tried to give me IV pain med, but I like reacted to it and it was like making me dry heave and it was worse.
Right.
So I actually was like, well, take me off the pain meds because like the throwing up of nothing in my system is way more painful. And then they kind of figured out some pain solutions. So I was like, get a dietitian in here. Like I am losing lean protein so quickly and I have to wound heal. I know upstream food is so important. You need to get me like some protein in my system. And then they like come with like, here's the Boost juice box. And I was like, no.
Orange juice.
Right.
You're trying to kill me more?
Yeah. So I pass some gas. And then my husband starts laughing because it's like so gross. He's like fanning himself with like a get well balloon. And then I start laughing at him. And then I almost aspirate on my own spit. I'm like, am I going to die? Because I just farted. And now
I just
I'm like,
survived cancer. I'm going to choke on my own spit.
I'm going to choke on my own spit. Like, is this how I'm going to end? So I get my first breakfast. It was so good. I was so hungry. It was like rotten, gross, like hospital scrambled eggs. But I was like, protein, like get this into me. And I got released home. So I like can't walk. So I'm learning how to walk. Thank God for CrossFit. Like my upper body's strong. I have one of those like upright walkers where I like just drag my leg with me. And my good leg and my 2 arms were like how I basically propelled.
Right.
And then went home, rented a hospital bed because I like could not, I was like a helpless little baby bird. So at first they had to put me on a couch, but I don't have any ability to sit myself up.
Right.
So my mom and my husband are like 24/7, like they tagged in and out so he could go to work. And then my mom like moved in to kind of help me. I can't walk to a bathroom. So someone has to like physically walk me, sit me down, stand me up. I lost so much weight. You know, I like lost 12 pounds in the first week because of the stress of surgery, not being able to eat. Like I just like ate through my muscle, like so
Which is
quickly.
crazy to think about, like how fast that happens for somebody to go from that level of fitness.
Like
so
literally regional athlete body.
Right.
And then just like
all of a sudden to like
because it
emaciated.
needed calories.
Yeah,
I was just emaciated. And people like, whoa, you look like you have cancer. And that's why I was
well, turns out.
Yeah. And so I was like, feed me protein. Like because you're just doing so much wound healing. Like I had so many body parts cut out and put back together. And I know as a dietitian, the metabolic demand, it was like the equivalent of like a regional day of like competing.
And that's even before we talk about like all the lack of, you know, now you're going to struggle with digestion of nutrients and like bioavailability of food. Like now you have a whole nother set of problems you're probably thinking about because like you have that information available to you. You're like, oh shit, like this has a lot of hurdles coming down at me.
Well, and the other thing the doctor said is like, just so you know, when you go home, you need to get your will and affairs in order. You have probably about 6 12 months max. Like that's kind of what we see.
So they remove everything and they're like, we think we did it, but you're probably still screwed.
Right.
Okay.
So I looked at the oncologist and I basically said, well, someone has to be in the 8%. Why not me? Best sentence of my entire life.
Cool. Which,
Yes.
by the way, I had no idea we were going to do this. We're going to break this into 2 parts because
Okay.
I didn't think this was going to go this long. But we are now at the peak of this. And when we come back for the second part, what I want to start talking about is like how the recovery goes and then that transition into like building your business and then how we can do and what we have to help box owners moving forward.
With nutrition coaching. Yeah.
So you guys are not going to want to miss the next part, but this has been really good. But we do need to take a break because we have to go to another call.
Yeah.
And talked about motivational interviewing.
There we go.
So we'll be back for the next one. And I won't forget to hit record on that one either. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Best Hour of Their Day podcast. We appreciate you listening and choosing to have us help you in your passion for coaching and affiliate ownership. You can find more episodes just like this on all podcast platforms. If you're interested in learning more, you can reach out to us on any social media platforms, or you can visit www.besthouroftheirday.com to book a call. If you found this episode helpful for you, please share it so that we can help other coaches and affiliate owners to help build a bigger and stronger CrossFit community. Thanks for listening.